You were sleeping. President-elect Biden cleared the final hurdle before his inauguration. Congress certified the results of the Electoral College, and through an aide, President Trump is now pledging a peaceful transfer of power while still battling the results, saying in part in a statement, quote, "Even though I totally disagree with the outcome of the election and the facts bear me out, nevertheless, there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. ABC's Faith Abube has the very latest on the vote after a day of unrest in the Capitol.
Overnight, a joint session of Congress ratifying the Electoral College votes in the presidential election. The move certifying President-elect Joe Biden's decisive win as he prepares to take office in less than 2 weeks.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be the president and the vice president.
And it comes after a tumultuous day at the U.S. Capitol. A symbol of U.S. democracy attacked by violent pro-Trump mobs and left in disarray. The image is hard to watch. Demonstrators scaling walls, breaking through security barriers, smashing windows, and storming restricted areas of the U.S. Capitol, including House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office. The Trump supporters forcing lawmakers to take cover in fear of their lives. Pictures show armed Capitol Police outnumbered, guns drawn and barricading doors as the chaos unfolded. D.C. police telling ABC News 1 woman and 2 men suffered medical emergencies and later died. Another woman shot and killed during a standoff inside the Capitol. The chaos forcing lawmakers to break from what should have been a quiet day, ratifying the Electoral College votes in the presidential election. Instead, as the joint session of Congress convened, President Trump urging his supporters during a rally to head to the Capitol.
You'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong.
As the supporters breached the building, multiple sources tell ABC News Trump rejected calls to bring in the National Guard, only signing off after White House officials intervened for the sake of the country. 3 people inside the White House resigning over the violent display. And now some talk, according to ABC News sources, among cabinet members to remove Trump himself from office. Lawmakers from both sides of the political aisle, shaken but undeterred, returning to the chamber overnight to finish their work.
And soon after Congress certified the results, President Trump released a statement saying he wasn't happy with the outcome, but there will be a smooth transition of power on January 20th. In Washington, Faith Abube, ABC News.
And after Congress reconvened, many of the Republican lawmakers who had originally planned to object to the certification changed their mind. That was not the case for some of our local lawmakers, including Missouri Senator Josh Hawley and Kansas Senator Roger Marshall. KMBC 9's Matt Evans walks us through what happened.
As we went into that joint session of Congress yesterday, we expected more than a dozen Republican senators to voice their objections and vote against certifying Electoral College results from several key swing states. But after the violence at the U.S. Capitol yesterday afternoon, we saw that coalition significantly erode. But still, 2 senators from our area voted to go ahead with those objections. U.S. Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri, who's led this charge over the past several weeks, and also Republican Senator, newly elected Senator Roger Marshall, both voting to object from the votes from Arizona and Pennsylvania, saying they condemn the violence that happened yesterday, but also saying that it would not deter them from voicing their concerns over allegations of election fraud in the November election. Here's how the votes ended up in the U.S. Senate. Both objections failing by a wide margin. The Arizona objection failing by a 93-6 vote. The Pennsylvania objection failing by a 92-7 vote. In the House, both objections also failed by a large margin of more than 100 votes, with the majority of Republicans from both Missouri and Kansas voting to object. St. Louis area Republican lawmaker Ann Wagner was the only Republican from Missouri or Kansas to join in the 3 Democrats from the 2 states in voting to certify those election results last night. In Kansas City, Matt Evans, KMBC 9 News.
All right, thanks, Matt. Well, late last night, as debate continued on the floor of the House and Senate, Kansas Congressman Jake LaTurner learned that he tested positive for the coronavirus. His office tweeted the news overnight, with a spokesperson writing, quote, Congressman LaTurner took the test as part of Washington, D.C.'s travel guidelines that requires visitors be tested. He's not experiencing any symptoms at this time. They added, he quotes, is following the advice of the House physician and CDC guidelines and therefore does not plan to return to the House floor for votes until he is cleared to do so. While there were COVID-19 precautions in place at the Capitol, we know many lawmakers took off their masks to speak yesterday. We don't yet know of any other politicians taking precautions because of the potential exposure. As the dust settles following yesterday's crisis, we are now getting a better idea of the damage done inside the Capitol. We'll take a look. I want to show you some pictures from inside the Senate chambers. You can see their furniture smashed. There's garbage there. There's a vandalized statue and also leftover items from the siege. Well, rioters also forced their way into offices in the Capitol building. This here is the office of a Senate parliamentarian and her staff on the first floor next to one of the main doors breached by the crowds. Well, you see there the office is trashed, torn apart, papers are everywhere. Well, it's not clear yet just how much damage was done and how long it'll take to clean up and make the necessary repairs. And the FBI is asking for tips and photos to help identify people who took part in the violence and damage in and around the Capitol. They've created a new form on their website for people to send pictures or videos at fbi.gov/US Capitol. They are also encouraging people without media to submit information at tips.fbi.gov or call 1-800-CALL-FBI. And a man who worked for two Kansas congressmen watched what happened on Wednesday in disbelief. KBC 9's Martin Augustine is live with more on this story. Martin, good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Howard Balaky grew up in Lawrence and was the chief of staff to Congressman Dennis Moore and Jim Slattery, working 27 years on the Hill. So what he saw happening at Capitol Hill on Wednesday was very hard for him to watch. It was hard for him to describe, too. He calls what those people did storming the Capitol indefensible on so many levels, as in his long experience working on Capitol Hill, he never felt unsafe there.
I mean, that is just stunning and horrifying and disturbing.
Balaky says the thousands of people that overran the Capitol make the United States look like a banana republic. Reporting live, Martin Augustine, KBC 9 News.
Martin, thank you. And one of the president's top aides has resigned, and more are considering it after yesterday's chaos. White House Deputy National Security Advisor Matt Pottinger will step down from his post. Several sources say National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien may join him. Before the riots, O'Brien defended Vice President Mike Pence for his courage to refuse to do President Trump's bidding and certify the election. Deputy Chief of Staff Chris Liddell is also reportedly thinking about resigning. And this morning, we are learning that Vice President Pence played a key role in sending the National Guard to break up the violence at the Capitol. Sources say that President Trump at first resisted involving the Guard, but that Pence went ahead and coordinated the deployment with the Pentagon. Well, a statement by Acting Defense Secretary Christopher Miller suggests that Pence, not the president, gave the final go-ahead. However, later, the White House press secretary tweeted that the president, quote, directed the Guard to respond. And the people of Kansas City are reacting to the unprecedented events at the Capitol. KBC 9's Alan Cho visited a local barber who says he was hoping the country would be closer to healing, but is concerned we might be further apart.
I've never seen anything like that at the Capitol.
At the Circuits Barbershop near 60th and Swope, business is at a standstill.
The scenes of chaos at the Capitol do not reflect a true America.
All eyes glued to the TV and the actions of some protesters.
People that clearly don't care about the law, they feel like they are the law.
For barber Ryan Surratt, the images bring back those of the recent Black Lives Matter movement, and he feels the president sent the wrong message then and is sending the wrong one now.
He's quick to tell them to go stop the Black Lives Matter people and send out force. It's super frustrating because it feels like it's double standard.
Look what we're looking at now. Right. This is not America.
Yeah, you have to have a line in the sand and say, hey, this is wrong.
Because he says democracy matters to everyone.
And for you to stop Congress from allowing those electoral votes to matter, that's a disgrace.
He adds,
if it's not unity at the top, then it's hard for us in our community to have unity.
In Kansas City, Alan Shope, KBC 9 News.
And as we all come to terms with what happened in Washington, you can count on KBC 9 News to keep you updated with new information as it becomes available. Over the coming days and weeks, we will be following the very latest developments both on air, online, and on our free KBC 9 News app.